Well, today we are excited to have the infamous Mike Stagg here, infamous, uh,
Infamous is right.
to talk
And
to us about OSHA's top 10.
yeah, this is Jason's top 10, right? This is the Jason top 10. When you find a picture, you find a
Oh, what did you
glamorous picture of
find?
a coworker, you gotta put it in there, right?
Oh, man. That's pretty rough. That's
That's
pretty.
a good one.
Where'd you
We'll
find
talk
that?
about OSHA's top 10. Jason's got a good top 10, but we're gonna go through OSHA's top 10 here today with y'all. So these are the top 10 OSHA violations from their fiscal year 2023. First off, just want to put in a shameless plug, like Jason said, for the Trust YouTube channel. Everything that we talk about here, okay, all of these popular findings, the top 10 OSHA findings from 2023, you'll find a webinar on them. Okay, just go to our YouTube channel, like Jason said, utahtrust.gov, click on training and events. You can find it there. You can search google.com and then go to YouTube and type in the search bar Utah Local Governments Trust will come up there. Subscribe to the channel. Anything that you're really looking for a webinar as it pertains to these topics in particular, we've got something there for you. Okay. All right. So now let's get going. Here's the top 10. All right. Here our top 5 from last year. Okay, 2023. Number 1, fall protection. 2, HAZCOM. 3, ladders. 4, scaffolding. 5, powered industrial trucks. All right, and then you can see the rank as of 2022. So where numbers have changed. So fall protection is number 1. Fall protection has been the number 1 OSHA violation for the last, I think, 12 years running. Okay. And you look, it's more than double the violations that got from hazard communications. Okay, but HAZCOM was number 2. Ladders have gone up 1 spot. Scaffolding went up 1 spot. Powered industrial trucks like forklifts and things went up 2 spots. All right. So we're gonna hit each of these just at a really high level on what we can do to avoid these violations. All right, here's the bottom of the top 10. Lockout, tagout, number 6. Respiratory protection, number 7. Fall protection, the training around fall protection, number 8. Number 9 is PPE, specifically around eye and face protection. And number 10 is machine guarding. So respiratory protection, that went down from number 3 to number 7. So that's a good thing. We did better with respiratory protection last year. We did worse in other areas. Look at the top 10 numbers, though. Nothing has changed really from 2022. It's the usual suspects. Okay. And it's been that way for the last few years, that it's been really these 10 violations that OSHA has been really concerned with. And that people are getting dinged on is these specific 10. So take a look at the Trust YouTube channel around these different topics. If you need training on them, if you need to figure out, are we doing everything that we need to do, go to the Trust YouTube channel and search any one of these topics, and they will come up for you on webinars that Jason or I have done, or others in the past on these specific trainings in particular. Okay. All right. But now we're going to dive into these top 10 and just talk very briefly about what we can do, hopefully, to protect ourselves. Okay. Number 1, fall protection. The OSHA standard, the general industry OSHA standard around that is 1910.28. So what the challenge is with fall protection, we need to work at height. We need to change light bulbs. We need to do things off of ladders and things like that. Falls cause about 700 deaths per year. Okay. Again, 13th year in a row that is number 1. All right. I think I said 12 earlier. It's 13. 13th year in a row that it's the number 1 OSHA violation. Falls can occur from any height. We have to learn to recognize those fall hazards. If we're working higher than 4 feet, we have to have fall protection. Okay, fall protection is required at that height. Most fall-related injuries are caused by unprotected sides, edges, or openings, improper use of scaffold construction, misuse of ladders, or protruding steel rebar that's sticking out. Okay, so these unprotected sides, edges, floor openings, things like that. Okay, those are where most of our fall-related injuries occur. So what are our responsibilities as employers? Well, our responsibilities are to identify the fall hazards in the workplace. And then once we've identified them, try to eliminate them. And so we don't have those fall hazards there for the employees. We have to provide the fall protection systems and a fall protection program. We have to have a written program based on fall protection and what we're doing inside of the workplace to ensure that we're protecting our workers from these falls. Okay. The employer must provide protection for exposure to falls and falling objects. These applies to stairways, scaffolding, working on roofs, rope descent systems, etc. Those different types of things. It has to address holes, drop-offs, open edges. Okay, so if we've got platforms, if we've got scaffolding, if we're doing painting, whatever it is, we have to have a fall protection and a program built around that to hopefully lessen the exposure to the fall and the falling systems. All right, different kinds of fall protection systems, fall arrest systems, fall restraint systems, guardrails, railings, safety nets, covers, lots of different fall protection systems that we can put into place so that we can protect our workers, so that we can be protected when we're working out there. Now, again, I know I'm going through these rather quickly. We've got 10 of them to get through and only a half an hour to do it. Go to the YouTube channel, search fall protection, and you'll find a webinar all about this, okay, about fall protection and what we can do, and we'll dive really into much greater detail there. Again, here we're just going to hit the high level stuff as we keep going. Okay. Number 2 is hazard communication. Hey, ASCOM 1910.1200. Jason did an excellent job last week in talking about hazard communication. Go and search up that webinar. Now, let's just hit the high levels here. Some employer requirements is we have to have a written HAZCOM program. That written HAZCOM program has to identify and list all the chemicals that we could be exposed to while we're here at work. Okay, that includes chemicals underneath the sink for cleaning out for cleaning the sink. It includes the chemicals that you use to clean your windows or to clean the toilets in the restrooms. Okay, we have to list out all of those different chemicals. We have to train employees on the hazards and how to get information on the chemicals and where they go if they were to be exposed, they were to inhale or to ingest those chemicals. We have to institute a labeling system that everyone understands. Okay, there's got to be a labeling system out there so that we have to label all of our chemicals so that they can be easily identified by anyone. And we have to provide SDSs for employees in the workplace. Okay, we have to provide those SDSs in the workplace for all of our employees. They have to be accessible. It has to be in like a book or a binder somewhere. It can be digital, but if it's digital, everyone's got to have access to that computer where those SDS forms are stored. Okay. We have to have that written HAZCOM program that we have to make available to all employees. We have to train employees on that program. We have to have a current chemical inventory. Okay. Again, have that current chemical inventory on everything that is there. That written HAZCOM program is exceptionally important. That's what many of these violations were as a result of, is that there wasn't that written HAZCOM program. Okay. Again, go back and watch Jason's webinar. Jason did a great job on this. Talk about labeling. And we have to have labels on all of our chemicals. You can create your own label, that's fine, as long as it's clear. As long as it's clear on what is in that bottle and what is in that thing. Okay. You have to have labels on things that are good for immediate use, things that you're going to use right now, and then things that are going to be stored, the chemicals that will be stored for use at a later time. Again, SDS books must be available to all employees. They have to be kept up to date. Inside of these SDS, you've got to make sure you've got all of your chemicals listed that you could be working with at any specific time. When OSHA comes to do it, if OSHA knocks on the door, they're going to ask to see this SDS book. They're going to ask to see, do you have every single chemical listed that you have inside of the workplace? Okay. Now that may mean we have to have different SDS books for different locations, because one location might have different chemicals than another. Okay. So ensure that we've got updated SDS books in all of our locations, and they include all of the chemicals that our employees could be affected by. If you, as an employee, if you don't know where the SDS book is, that's a good thing to maybe look for today. Go check it out. Go see where is that SDS book? Where is that located? And does it have everything in there that we need to have in case I'm exposed to a harmful chemical? All right. Number 3 was ladders. Hey, the OSHA standard around ladders is 1910.1.23, the general industry standard, excuse me. Problems with the ladders, 43% of fatal falls in the last little bit involved the ladder. Okay. 300 deaths and about 164,000 ER visits. Most ladder deaths are above when you have a ladder over 10 feet. Here at the Trust, we have about 15 ladder injuries annually. They're big pain. They cause big pain for you if you fall and you get hurt, but they also cost a lot of money because there's a lot of injury associated with this. You know, a shoulder, a back, a knee, something like that, an ankle. Okay, lots of pain, lots of money associated with these ladders. Okay, so as far as ladder safety goes, we got to make sure we choose the right ladder for the right job. Okay, we got to inspect that ladder and make sure we use that ladder correctly. Make sure the ladder is in good repair. We'll talk about that here in just a minute, and make sure that we use that ladder correctly. Okay, so your first steps to ladder use and safety is to have a pre-use inspection. Okay, make sure that that ladder is in good repair. Never use a ladder in strong winds. Okay, if it's a windy day outside, God, don't put that ladder up. It might blow over on you. The wall rest should be flat and firm where it's against the wall, or where it's on the ground. It should be flat and firm on that ground. The ground should be level and even. Okay, we don't want that ladder to be rocking back and forth. Check for electricity. 10 feet, you have to have a 10-foot minimum use zone around your ladder. Okay, if you're within 10 feet of any kind of electrical line, electrical power line or something, don't use a ladder in that location. A 10-foot minimum radius needs to be employed when you're using that ladder. Now, as far as ladder maintenance and storage, make sure that your ladders are secured. Now, this is one of those OSHA violations that are constantly coming up, and some of the trust members have been dinged for in the past, is that we have a ladder, and if it's leaning up against the wall in a vertical position, it has to be secured. Okay, you got to secure it with a chain or a bungee cord or something like that is going to secure that ladder to the wall. If it's laid horizontally on the ground, that's fine. Okay, but if it's standing up in a vertical position, they can ding you for it. Okay, we don't want you to get dinged for it, so make sure it's secured. Make sure the ladders are clean, they're dry, and they're out of the sunlight. Why do you think you want those ladders out of the sunlight? Yeah, when you think about, days like we had last week when it's over 100 degrees, if you got a ladder out there, aluminum ladder out there baking, or a fiberglass one out there baking, that can really worsen the integrity of that ladder. I'm sorry. Make sure you have regular inspections. Okay, make sure you mark down when those inspections occurred. Make sure you check the stairs in each of the different rungs, and make sure that it's a good and secure ladder for you. If that ladder is damaged beyond repair, cut it up, get rid of it, chuck the ladder if it's beyond repair. Okay, get rid of it, break it, okay, cut it up, get it out of commission, because you don't want somebody going and grabbing a ladder that is potentially going to hurt them. Okay, so if you have something out there that is damaged beyond repair, go and get rid of it. Don't just keep it around and think, maybe we can repair that later or whatever. Get rid of them. Go buy a new one. Okay, make sure we're doing it the right way every single time. Now, when we talk about ladder handling, make sure you lift as a team. Okay, team lift together. Two of you taking that ladder. Don't try and be macho. Okay, take it and get a helper. Don't drag or drop the ladder. Okay, make sure you pick it up and you hold it tight in your hands and it's held off the ground. Don't move an extension ladder in an extended position. All right, they tend to fall over. Okay, then they get broken. Don't do that. And make sure you tie down the ladder when transporting. How many of y'all have ever found a free ladder on the freeway? It's flew off of somebody's truck. Okay, so make sure you tie down those ladders when transporting them so that they don't fall off and hurt somebody else. And make sure you're lifting as a team and not dragging and dropping that ladder, because you don't want it to get banged up. You don't want the rungs to break or the ladder to be bent if you're going to be using that ladder. All right, let's keep going. We've got a lot to get through. Powered industrial trucks is number 5 on the list. Powered industrial trucks, forklifts, okay, things like that. OSHA standard behind that is 1910.178. Just some statistics about forklifts. Over 11% of forklifts will be involved in an accident each year. Okay, over 11%. About 36,000 injuries annually and 85 fatalities. Hey, that's a lot. We don't want to get there. Most of these accidents are caused by a lack of training or inappropriate training. Okay, so let's talk about what the requirements are for forklifts. Okay, it is the employer's responsibility to train and evaluate forklift operators as specified in the OSHA standard. The OSHA standard says that everyone has to be trained and they have to be certified every 3 years in order to operate a forklift. Okay. Now, who is the trainer? The trainer in the OSHA standard just says they have to be a competent person. And that competent person, that trainer has to have sufficient knowledge and training and experience in order to evaluate operator competency. Okay. So there's no special class or certification you have to go through in order to be a competent person. Now, with the forklift trainer, that trainer just has to have sufficient knowledge and attitudes and training and experience in order for them to effectively say, yeah, this person is good to operate the forklift. Okay. So what are the things that we actually train on? What are the things you have to be trained on according to the OSHA standard? The OSHA standard says that only trained and authorized operators shall be permitted to operate a powered industrial truck. Every time you hear shall inside of an OSHA standard, it means must, like you got to do it. Okay. So the operator training, the type of training you have to go through, you have to have a formal, like in-person classroom type of instruction. Okay. You have to have formal instruction on safe operation and handling of a forklift or powered industrial truck. You have to have practical training, which means hands-on. You got to get in the truck. You got to do a pre-shift inspection. You have to be evaluated as the operator on the different aspects of operating the truck, raising and lowering the forks, carrying a load, operating the truck, using the horn. Those kind of things are things that you have to be evaluated on as an operator. Okay. Now the training program, what it has to contain is it has to contain truck specific training. So you have to be trained on the specific type of forklift or powered industrial truck that you will be using inside of your organization. So let's say we have 2 different kinds of forklifts inside the organization. Does that mean that each person who could use both trucks has to go through 2 different kinds of truck specific training? It does. You have to be trained specifically on each type of powered industrial truck. Okay. Same thing with workplace related safety training. If those 2 forklifts, say you have one forklift, it is one forklift for the entire organization, but you could use it at one place and it could be transported and you could have to use it at another place. Or you have a pneumatic truck, a class 7 truck at one place and a class 7 truck at another place. Does that mean that you have to be trained in different types of trucks? No, the trucks are the same, but the workplaces are different. Okay. So you've got to be trained on the specific truck and in the specific workplace that truck is going to be operating. So just because you went through truck specific training on one type of forklift in one location, but there's that same type of forklift at a different location, that doesn't qualify for workplace related training if you're going to use both areas. You have to be trained in the specific area where that truck is going to be used. Okay. So that is just, again, the requirement of the OSHA standard that you have to be trained in the area that which you're going to be operating that truck. All right. Okay. Let's keep going. As far as the evaluation of the operator, the evaluation has to be conducted after the initial training or after refresher training. So if you've gone through the initial program, you then have to be evaluated as an operator in a hands-on practical type of environment. You also, if there's a refresher training done, you have to be evaluated, okay, on the operation of that forklift in a practical hands-on situation. And it has to be done at least once every 3 years. Again, you have to be certified and gone through the training and the evaluation at least once every 3 years in order to be current per the OSHA standard. Okay. So what do we evaluate? What kind of things are you evaluated on as a forklift operator? Okay. Do you have the knowledge and skills needed to operate the equipment safely? Okay. Are you comfortable with the equipment? Do you know where the controls are and how to use them? So what's going to happen is you're going to be watched picking up and positioning items. So the person who is they're evaluating you, they're going to watch you, they're going to walk through with you, they're going to make sure that you have sufficient knowledge and skills needed so you can do this job safely. Okay, they're going to watch you pick up and move items to make sure that you know exactly what you're doing. Okay, refresher training is required at least once every 3 years. It's also required whenever there's any unsafe operation, or if there's an accident or near miss with the forklift or powered industrial truck. You have to go through refresher training if there's a near miss or if there's an accident. If there's different equipment introduced, okay? If you get a new forklift into the organization, you got to go through refresher training. Refresher training means classroom and hands-on, okay? Or if workplace conditions change, like you're moving to a new building, you're going to use the forklift at a different location. Refresher training is needed. Classroom, hands-on, practical, okay? Both of those things are required every single time when you go through any kind of initial or refresher type training for a powered industrial truck. That's what a lot of these violations have come from, is that there's the initial or the refresher training isn't being done correctly. Okay, they're not being done at least once every 3 years. It's not being documented. Okay, and the other thing they're looking for is a certification. Okay, that certification has to be carried and used. It has to be carried by the operator whenever they're operating that forklift. Okay, so they've got to have their card on them. It has to have a certificate or a physical type of card that they can have. That certification has to include the name of the operator, when the training was completed, when the evaluation was completed, and then who actually signed off and said, you're good here, the training and the evaluation. The important part in the OSHA standard behind this powered industrial truck thing is that the employer has to certify the operator has been trained and evaluated. So that means you've got to be signed off by somebody inside of your organization that says you're good. The organization or the employer has to give that certification. That competent person has to be employed by the organization because the employer has to certify that this person is good to operate the forklift. All right, let's keep moving. A lockout tagout 1910.147 is number 6 on the list. Okay, Jason's going to do a webinar on this next week. So please come to that one so you get a lot more information on this. I'm just going to hit really high level things. The OSHA standard says has to protect against unexpected energization of machines, release of stored energy, and the injury to employees, how we avoid those things. So when do we use lockout tagout? We use them during service and maintenance, or whenever you have to remove a guard, or you have to bypass a safety device. If you're ever placing your body in the danger zone during machine operation, you got to use lockout tagout. Okay. Now, when we talk lockout tagout, there are two kinds of definitions in the OSHA standard. One is the affected employee, and an affected employee is any employee who works around equipment that may require maintenance or service. Okay, that would be the affected employee. And then you have the authorized employee. An authorized employee is a person who locked out the equipment to perform service or maintenance. The authorized employee is someone who is trained and authorized in order to provide maintenance on this piece of equipment. Okay, they have to have knowledge of the hazards associated, and they have to know the methods to control the energy. They have to know their lockout tagout procedures to control the energy of that equipment. All right. So when we talk lockout is placement of a lock on an energy or an energy isolating device. We have to, the lockout ensures that the equipment is not energized, and there can only be one key per lock. Okay. Now Jason's gonna, like I said, Jason will talk a lot more about lockout tagout in our webinar next week. Okay. Tagout is the secure placement of the tag. And the tag must have the name of the employee who locked that piece of equipment out and the date when that lock was applied. Okay, so it's two parts: locking the equipment and tagging it out. Okay, so the tag again has to have the name of the employee and the date when the lockout was applied. So the authorized employee, that person who is authorized for maintenance and to apply lockout tagout, their responsibilities are to notify the affected employees. And they must apply a lock and tag to each energy isolating device. When they shut down the machine to do maintenance or whatever, they have to apply a lock and tag to each energy isolating device. All right. Now, as far as supervisors, what are your responsibilities? You have to ensure compliance with the lockout tagout procedures of the organization. You have to coordinate training for all the employees. Have to coordinate training before lockout. Okay. You have to coordinate training at least annually. Okay. And again, annual training has to be documented. Okay. Or when deficiencies are identified or changes are made to the program, you have to provide training and coordinate that for all the employees. So let's think about that for just a second. Have you been trained this year in lockout tagout? Have you been trained in the last 12 months? If not, it's a good time to do it, because that's one of these common OSHA violations, is not trained annually on lockout tagout. Okay. We have to make sure we conduct annual audits on your lockout tagout program, making sure that it's still meeting the requirements and the standards that we thought it was when we put it into place. Each machine needs to have specific step-by-step procedures on how to lock out and tag out that piece of equipment. You have to have the location and types of energy sources available there, and what are the methods we use to lock and tag that equipment out to control the hazards. All right, let's keep moving. Respiratory protection was number 7, 1910.134. Okay, when we talk respiratory protection, the OSHA standard requires an exposure assessment to see, okay, do we have a need for respiratory protection here? The OSHA standard also requires training, medical evaluation, fit testing, and documentation of the voluntary use of respirators and respirator masks. When we talk respiratory protection, there's 2 major types that we talk about: air purifying or atmosphere supplying. Okay, air purifying is like your mask that you see here. Okay, a gas canister type of mask. Atmosphere supplying, use your SCBA devices. Okay, you're actually supplying atmosphere to yourself, whereas the air purifying, you're just purifying the bad stuff out of the air so you can breathe it. Okay, both of these require, if you're using these in the workplace, they require a respiratory protection program. Okay, respiratory protection program has to include medical evaluation. Medical evaluation has to be conducted, and it's required prior to each fit test. Must be performed by a professional healthcare provider. Okay, it has to be performed by a doctor using a medical questionnaire or an exam. Okay, they're going to ask you questions to determine, is this person fit enough to wear a mask? Okay, do they have asthma? Do they have some kind of other breathing deficiency that may preclude them from wearing a mask? And there could be some follow-up exams if a positive answer has been identified by the by the licensed healthcare professional. All right. After the medical evaluation, we got to go through fit testing. Fit testing has to be performed prior to initial use. Okay. Or whenever a different respirator is introduced. There is an annual requirement for fit testing. So again, if you haven't been fit tested this year or in the last 12 months, got to be fit tested if you're using a respirator mask, okay? Or if there's a change in an employee's physical condition, okay? It's required for all tight-fitting respirators. So let's keep that in mind on these things that are required for us. All right, number 8 was fall protection, specifically training around fall protection. It's the employer's responsibility to provide that fall protection program like we talked about, and to train employees on that program. Ongoing training has to be provided to the employees on personal fall arrest systems, on the falls and equipment hazards, and the use of the fall protection systems. And again, you have to be trained by a qualified person, a competent person, a person with sufficient knowledge, skills, attitudes, and abilities to evaluate on if things are being done correctly. As with all the training, documentation is extremely important. Okay, in all of these standards that we've talked about so far, documentation is going to save your bacon. Okay, make sure there's training records. Make sure you're documenting the inspections that you're doing on your pieces of equipment, on maintenance and repairs, or any kind of new installations that you have going on. Okay, if it's not documented, it never happened. So make sure that you're documenting these things. Refresher training as far as fall protection goes. If there's a change in the workplace, you need to go through refresher training. If there's new fall protection systems that you introduce, everyone's got to go through refresher training. If you find deficiencies or people doing it the wrong way, you got to go through refresher training. Or if you find that folks are lacking, knowledge or skills, and they're doing things the wrong way, or they're taking shortcuts, okay, you got to have that refresher training done. Number 9 was PPE, okay, specifically around eye and face protection. Okay, so what the employer has to do, they have to verify through a written hazard assessment that they've evaluated, and they evaluated the job or the workplace and determined that we need some kind of personal protective equipment there. A lot of times when OSHA was coming out, they weren't finding that a workplace hazard assessment has been done and that a written certification had been made and said, this is the kind of PPE we need for doing this specific kind of job. Okay, these are the hazards in place. This is the personal protective equipment that we are going to provide for you as employees to make sure that we can try and take that away. Here are the workplace practice controls that we've used and the engineering controls. And finally, here's the PPE that we've got to use. So when we're selecting PPE, make sure you evaluate the job and evaluate the PPE, because there is no such thing as perfect personal protective equipment. Select the right one for the job. Okay. Now, what about training? Employers have to train employees on when that PPE is necessary, when you have to wear it, what kind of PPE is necessary, and how to properly don, doff, adjust, and wear your PPE. So how to put it on, how to take it off, how to store it, how to maintain it, and what are the limitations of the PPE. Okay, what does this PPE protect from, and what doesn't it protect from? That's part of our job. Okay, again, documentation is important. We have to document that hazard assessment. You have to document the PPE selection and why you chose the specific PPE that you chose and are requiring for the employees. Okay, we have to go through training on these things. Okay, now specifically around in the OSHA in the OSHA top 10 findings, they found a lot of deficiencies around eye and face protection. Okay, so I wanted to touch on that really quick. Okay, your eye and face protection has to cover the front and the sides to protect from a head-on impact as well as a lateral impact. Look for a Z87 rating on the glasses, on the face shields, on things like that. That will determine if these are safety glasses or goggles. Prescription glasses are not normally safety glasses, okay? They have the Z87 rating. They could be. They will be, excuse me. Safety glasses should be worn underneath face shields or helmets, okay? Face shield goes on after the goggles or the glasses go on, all right? And tinted glasses and hoods are sometimes needed if you're doing welding or brazing or cutting or things that are going to be creating sparks and things like that. You may need to use different personal protective equipment for eyes and face. All right, last one, number 10, machine guarding. Okay, here's the OSHA standard around that, or that says that one or more methods of machine guarding have to be provided to protect the operator and other employees in the machine area from hazards, as those by point of operation, ingoing nip points, rotating parts, flying chips, and sparks. What does that mean? Let's talk about the rules about machine guarding, okay? And make sure to put them in big type so you know that they are important. If a guard's provided by a manufacturer, you've got to use it, okay? The guard is provided, you have to use it. If a guard has to be removed, you got to lock and tag out the machine. If you have to remove a guard, you got to lock and tag out that machine. Manufacturer's requirements are just that. They are requirements. Does that mean you got to read the owner's manual and keep it? Yeah, it does. Okay. You got to read the owner's manual so you know the manufacturer's requirements are when using that piece of equipment. All right. And lastly, if a manufacturer doesn't provide a guard, it doesn't mean it isn't required. Okay. If there's not a guard provided, doesn't mean it's not required. If there is a guard available, we've got to use it. Okay. So I know we went through a lot of that really quick, a lot of really high level information. Okay. Just make sure we make safety a priority so we don't have any of these top 10 appear in our organizations. If you've got questions or you want more information on any of these top 10 findings and you're thinking, we've got some of those in our organization. Again, go to our YouTube channel. We've got all of those trainings available for you. Sign up for our OSHA 10 class that we're going to have here in August. We're going to cover a lot of those topics in really, really good detail during that OSHA 10. Come to Jason's lockout tagout presentation next week, or search it up on YouTube. We'll have that up there for you. Okay. Remember, what's most important is OSHA is out there and they're looking for these violations. We don't want you to get dinged by OSHA, but more importantly, we want you to be safe. And you follow these things, you follow these specific things, and we can avoid these injuries that happen constantly.
Awesome.
All right, that's all we got.
Hey, if anybody's got any questions, type those into the chat box now and we will get those answered. Awesome presentation. Man, you covered a lot of stuff.
Woo!
A lot of stuff fast. So that was great. OSHA's out there looking. Why are these things in the top 10? As we're waiting for questions. Well, because people get hurt.
People are getting hurt.
Some of them are because OSHA, it's an easy ticket for OSHA to write, but a lot of is because people are getting hurt with these things. I'm not seeing questions there, Mike. How about a final word?
Huh. Final word. Don't have any of these top 10 appear for you. Go, shameless plug, YouTube. Go check it out. It's got all sorts of stuff on there for you. Outside of this top 10, it's got all of those on there for sure, but it's got a lot more. Dive in there, take a look, but just have a safe day.
Tons of resources. We're there to help. Thanks so much, Mike. Awesome job. Folks, be safe out there, and we will see you again real soon next Monday for Lockout Tagout.
Thanks, everyone.